All right, so what I've decided to do, always a suite of interesting bugs to run into in Maya. So what I've decided to do is, instead of using rendering out through the IPR render, this render view tends to be a little bit more stable for me. I thought I had fixed, or I thought Maya had fixed in 2019 that kind of IPR render bug. So IPR is great for previews. If you're going to be rendering to save images, this render view I find always does a little bit kind of cleaner of a job, and that's that just clean slate board here. You can also go get to it while it's rendering right now, but under the render tab. So instead of rendering all at once, and especially if the IPR crashes your Maya, Maya is actually just rendering out these little cubes, tiny little chunks, which is a little bit less intensive on your CPU, which means it is less likely to crash your machine as well. So there's always a few different ways to do a similar application in Maya. So hopefully rendering out through render view will then allow us to save our image once it's done. So the last time it was about 3 minutes. Sometimes when you, especially in CPU rendering, sometimes rendering in these little threads or these little chunks is a lot more efficient computationally than trying to render the whole thing too. So it'll be interesting to see if it makes any difference in terms of total time. Okay, so it was a tad faster. So this is, I think the last one was 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Maybe I'm wrong. This is 2 minutes and 56 seconds. But again, it looks really, really good. All of those little fireflies look like they've been mostly cleaned up. Moment of truth. File. Save image options. Color manage image. File. And save. Yay! Who knows why it wasn't working from the other render view port. Ours is not to know. Okay, so this is going into my folder inside of, it's creating another directory called images. Inside of that is temporary. So I'm going to call this render, hold render test 1, and to format. Great. And it's saving the color managed image, so save. So if I go in through my Finder window, I should, that is bright. And through my Finder window into my documents, into Maya projects, fall 2020, Art102. Here's my images. So here's my render test. Oh, I have a setting, something turned on. It's not rendering my background. But here's our PNG color managed image. And again, when I see if I can zoom in, it looks real good. Yeah. So that color banding, I think, is still slightly present, but it looks more exaggerated in the render preview than it does actually here in display. So that is our PNG. I'm going to go into Maya, and I want to do one more thing. I want to show you the environmental map of the HDRI image, and that is an Arnold light. So under our Arnold tab, there is this little tab here, a Skydome. You click on Skydome, it's going to create a default Skydome with the color here is all white that it's using and an intensity of 1. So if I hit that IPR render, you can see now my background is bright white because that's the Skydome, and it's illuminating the scene from all sides. So I'd actually probably, if I was using it in concert with those area lights, I might want to bring it down a little bit so that it's not so bright. But I'm going to actually use an HDRI image and input that image to drive the color, and not just this kind of color field. I could change, like my other lights, I can change the color of the Skydome, so it's going to cast the same color temperature around the scene. But what I want to do is actually use an image. So I'm going to go into the Googles, and I'm going to say HDRI, maybe beach. There we go. That looks great. I'm going to right click there and open image in a new tab. And I'm going to right click and say save image as. And I'm going to put that in my documents in Maya. Projects, fall 2020, and here we go. Actually, maybe in the, I'm going to do a new folder on the top level and call it HDRI, because I'll probably use this again. Secluded beach, great. And it's got some, it looks like, can't tell if that's the image or just the background. That's just the background. Okay. All right, so back into Maya, I've saved my HDRI image. So next to the color, instead of clicking on the color box, I'm going to click on the little checker box next to color. That's going to bring in my node options, my render node options. So there's a lot of things I can choose from, but I want to select a file. So I'm going to say File, and then it's going to bring up a file over here in my attribute editor where I can click on my folder and then find one level, that HDRI folder I just made and my secluded beach, and then open. And then you can see in the preview, I can see the secluded beach background. If I go into my, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, into my scene and say IPR render, I'm going to get all of that kind of color data information, right? So it's giving me this kind of brown shadows from the sand. It's going to give me still a lot of blue from like the sky. I can go back into select my Skydome here and from my 3D viewport. So just literally click on it, and then I can bring my intensity back up, right? So now that I don't have like that single bright white color, I'm getting much more nuanced color data out of the Skydome. I can actually bring the intensity back up a little bit. And let's see. Attributes, visibility. So if I don't want it, if I don't want to see the Skydome render it, I just want to use it to light the scene, I can turn the visibility on the camera view down to 0, and then it's only going to use the information from the Skydome to light the scene, not actually give you any visibility. But I'll bring it back up for our sake today. Okay, so I think those render settings, well, let's just 3 minutes. I'll just speed up the video again. So I'm going to go not in this render view. I'm going to click back out of here and then click in through the blank slate into render view and render it out tile at a time. Okay, so it looks like we're done here, and it took 5 minutes and 41 seconds. So with an environmental lighting, there's just more complex color data coming in, just more samples. It takes longer for the CPU to calculate out. So in my render view, I've clicked my little render view here. I've rendered it, did the tile rendering, and now I'm going to go in and I'm going to say File, and I'm going to save image, just double check. Color managed image, great. Close, and I'm going to say File, save image. And then we're going to save this under in the same images folder, file type PNG, and I'm going to name this old test render test Skydome. To PNG, and then save. Let's go into my Finder, and there we go. Great. So you can see really beautiful kind of complex lighting. We've got some kind of greens and browns bouncing around on these cubes, but also some brilliant blues and kind of the directional light from an overhead kind of sky in combination with the area lights. So that is it for first pass at rendering. So go ahead and use some of these mixture of lights. I want to see a mixture of lights. You can always change the color temperature of your directional lights for all of your kind of Arnold lights. I did a very soft color, but you can get really aggressive with the color. Have some fun lighting your sculptures, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Okay, take care. See you next week.